where he and T.I. were kind of going back and forth, and T.I. was basically saying that, you know, Busta was from an entirely different generation. They're like 8 years apart. He was talking about, weren't you on the leaders of the new school and all that type of stuff in relation to doing a versus battle. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, why does that matter if your records can stand the test of time? Like, I don't understand the argument about saying, well, it's a generational gap, so we can't go against each other. Like, I feel like people was trying to play Busta like he doesn't have heat. I think Busta Rhymes has a catalog. You think about features, he's been doing features the last 2 or 3 years with some of the younger kids, and then you think about some of his timeless records. Like, I didn't like that as an out. Like, I'm like, I almost feel like Busta been getting played on the internet like he doesn't have a crazy catalog. So I'll come to you, Jay Diff, first. In terms of that generational gap shit, we talking about the versus culture, and people are talking about that with Busta. Like, his catalog is fucking amazing. Like, did you agree with Tip when he said, nah, I don't want that smoke because you too old? I think he was ducking him. In my personal opinion, I think he was ducking him. It has nothing to do with a generational gap. That's just my opinion. What do you think?
In a sense, like you got to put it in perspective. As far as when they came out, so Tip came on the scene, early 2000s with the I'm Serious album.
Yeah. Around early 2000s.
Early 2000s. So Busta Rhymes came out like 92, 93.
It was earlier than that.
Yeah, but his first solo album was 96. So
first solo album was about 96.
The first Leaders album,
first Leaders was like 91, 92, something like that. And they was fresh out of high school. But I can kind of see it as that. But the thing about Busta Rhymes is he stood the test of time and was able to translate his sound from that time to now. It's kind of like a Jay-Z. When you think of Jay-Z is the same age as Big Daddy Kane. Big Daddy Kane ain't dropping records right now. So essentially he would be used as the generational gap because he's not doing anything that's prevalent or that's relating to kids or youth or even us right now. You know what I'm saying? But a Busta Rhymes, he's been consistent that long. So it's more, to me, necessarily say Tip was scared. Maybe he's not doing enough education to realize that Busta Rhymes is still one of your peers out here. He really can out rap you. And he's not, I understand he's not in the same lane as far as the type of music they create. Maybe that may have been what he should have said. Hey, I do more trap side. You more of hip hop. You jump in a pop song here. Maybe that may have been. Maybe I need to go up against somebody that's more suitable to my style versus saying that there's a generational gap. That's where he kind of fucked up because he stood test of time being able to stick and jab and move in every single generation since he came out.
I can dig that. Spoolz, jump in there, man. What do you think about that generational gap? I mean, like, to me, like I said, if the music is hot and it can last the test of time, that shouldn't matter. And I'm seeing a lot of people that's trying to play Busta Rhymes on his catalog. Like, I just didn't understand the train of thought from Tip. What do you think, Spoolz?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think I agree with Terry when it would have been better said. But I mean, if Tip doesn't feel this way, you shouldn't say it. But better said is like, you know, more of a style thing, or, you know, here's what I find super interesting about this, and this might be going too deep with it, but back in the days, I don't know, you know, late or early 2000s, late 90s, maybe before that, and then going back, New York always like the East Coast always hated on the South.
Definitely.
Like, they wouldn't fuck with them really. And I think it's funny now that like the South, the dude from the South, T.I., you know, now that we're doing this versus shit.
Yeah.
You know, a dude from the East Coast wants to, you know, do one, and he's like, nah. You know what I mean? I just think it's kind of interesting in a way. But no, man, I think that's I think it's kind of an interesting excuse or an interesting reason on Tip's part. Like, I think it could be a really good versus battle. I mean, no, they're not the same. Like, yes, like a Tip Jeezy or a Tip and Gucci Mane or something like that is what everybody would want to hear. But Tip and Busta Rhymes is kind of like out of left field. Like, I don't know, but that's not really what versus seems to have been trying to do. You know what I mean? Like, pit two completely different people together and see what happens, you know. But no, that's kind of a lame excuse, the generation thing. I don't know what he's trying to go for. Like, and to your point, Busta Rhymes has been doing it well and, you know, often for a long time. So
hasn't lost a step.
Let me come to Lone. You've always, we talked about verses. You're like, you've been pretty consistent on that. I thought this would be one that would be more intriguing to you. Would that be fair to say? Just because it's a little bit outside of the norm and styles are different. They say styles make fights, but would this have sparked your interest more in relation to verses based on how you normally are about it?
Yeah, for sure, because it's a little bit different. You know, like Busta and T.I. are two different demographics. So it's like, what is Busta going to play, you know, that's going to match up against this T.I. record? You know, like, what is T.I. going to play that's going to match up against Woo-Ha? You know, like, how is this going to, you know, like, to me, it would be at least interesting. You know, like Jeezy, T.I. accepted Jeezy's, you know, challenge.
Invitation. Yeah, challenge. Yep.
So, you know, that's what we would expect. So it doesn't interest me as much, but yeah, I mean, I would have been interested. I mean, I'm a Busta fan. You know, like I think he's highly slept on and underrated. And I think T.I. was respectful, but in a way, he tried to clown Busta with a couple things, especially when he said that, yeah, you should get somebody of your own generation like LL Cool J, like.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was
like what are you talking about?
Kind of
like,
what I was meant, man. It's kind of playing him, dude. You know,
he tried to play him on that.
I mean, even so, LL. I even said it in the video that I put out on the channel. I was like, you know, LL was thriving in the mid '80s. Like Busta Rhymes' first album was '96. Like we can talk about Leaders of the New School, but Leaders of the New School was not solo Busta Rhymes. It was different, and if T.I. comes out in like 2000, 2001,
definitely a different style altogether.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still different generations in between there. So like, it's, you know, I don't know. I don't think the generational thing was, I think maybe he just misspoke, you know. I think he was more so speaking to, unless he's only familiar with Busta's old stuff and hasn't been paying attention. But, you know, I don't know. Yeah, to answer your question, I definitely would have been more interested in Versus if T.I. was a part of it. With Busta.
I'm looking in the chat right now. I see Nicole is out here showing out. She says she thinks T.I. and Busta is a bum matchup style wise. She also says she heard a bootleg of the Busta. I guess it's pretty dope. For her, that's probably 8 out of 25 tracks or something. And let's see who else said something. T.I. didn't want those problems. Eric, I feel you. And he said, let's see, David said, plus Busta switched his style up constantly. He has. He's very versatile. Let's see, Stone Event said it's a marketing decision. Okay. And then Nicole said, y'all acting like Busta been doing more than features the last few years, and that ain't real.
That's not relevant, though.
I see she gonna be on one in the chat today. It's all good. Busta did plenty in the 2000s. I see you, David.
He's done just as much on that. He's done just as much as T.I. essentially, because I mean he's had mixtapes with Q-Tip. T.I. he's had like what 1 or 2 releases. He's had some mixtapes too. So as far as that's concerned, I think they're equally yoked. I don't think that I understand you as far as style wise though. Because if when you're using a T.I. versus Busta Rhymes, so you're gonna have the people that are big fans of Busta Rhymes that ain't trying to hear the T.I. tracks, and vice versa. It doesn't matter how good they sound, they're gonna pick the latter because that's who they riding for. So I can G for that. But as far as being out, Busta's, I think he's been doing just as much as T.I. has in the past few years.
You got a pocket of people though that are like what I would consider us for the most part. I like T.I. So there'd be some things where I would be like, man, I don't know. Like I wouldn't be pro Busta 100% and just saying I don't rock with T.I. Like T.I. got some heat. So we'd be in that kind of in that middle, you know what I'm saying? There are, to Terry's point though, I agree. There's gonna be sides that's like, nah, I ain't fuck with Tip, or nah, I don't fuck with Busta Rhymes. But I would kind of fall in the middle because I like both. So that's why it would be intriguing to me to just.
I definitely think it's marketing. It's definitely a marketing decision because T.I. just dropped an album and Busta just dropped an album, or is about to. And This would have been perfect promotion for both their albums if they would have done it.
That's fair.
But
To Nicole's point, I think that she was kind of saying like this is Busta's first album since 2012. I didn't realize that.
Oh, I see what you're
Yeah, I think that's what she's maybe not.
I think that's where she's going. Yeah, I see what you're saying, Spoolz.
Which
Hey, more jump in here on this generation.
Years, so yeah.
Jump in on this generational gap, man. Talk to me about that, because I don't see it as legit. Just I'd rather say the styles don't match.
I don't think the styles match, and quite honestly, I feel like T.I. did Busta a favor. It sounds crazy to the quote unquote hip hop purists, but you know, when I think about some, you know, when I was going in my head and thinking about some of Busta's singles, not talking about entire bodies of work, but I'm like, man, that really doesn't hold up. That doesn't hold up. You know, like when I think about a song like, when I think about a song like Break Your Neck, I'm like, that song ain't, that don't do it. It doesn't hold up, you know. But when I think about What You Know About That and Top Back and 24s, like these are songs that still go. And I do think there's a generational gap there, you know, because you don't think that Busta Rhymes would try to break out with like the Scenario remix or PTA. Like I guarantee you he would dip all the way back into his catalog if you're talking about a battle, because, you know, there are people who are diehard Busta Rhymes fans who would want to hear that. But at the same time,
those records are still dope, right?
I'm not saying that they're not dope, but I'm talking about there are some records that Busta had as singles and things that he might think, okay, this is going to be my number. This is going to be number 15, another 17. I'm like, it might not hold up the same way. You know, because I kind of went down a Busta Rhymes rabbit hole, and there are things that Busta Rhymes never released as singles. I'm like, man, that was dope. But like this shit he put out as a single, I'm like, you know, that song, he has a song like Get Out that is almost kind of like, kind of riding that wave of Hard Knock Life. It was the first single, I believe.
Remember that.
You know, but like who's really played or listened to that song in the 20 years since it was released? And that was a single, you know. With Party Going On Over Here, I think would be a monster, but like, I don't know if people even remember that song like that. So I don't think people say styles make fights. I honestly believe for the people who log on to a Verzuz, like T.I. would wipe the floor with Busta Rhymes, and I'm a Busta Rhymes fan, more of a Busta Rhymes fan than you got to think about it. You got to think who's actually going to get on their phone or their computer and watch this particular matchup, and who's really had those songs. Like I said, I'm giving you a few singles that if you go back and listen to, you'd be like, nah, this wasn't it. Mm-hmm.
You're analyzing the crowd and the audience. I'm talking about.
Yes, that's what I do.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is, if we talking about jams for jams, now keep in mind they do take into consideration features. Busta Rhymes is body a lot of features on a lot of dope,
and so has T.I.
That's what I'm saying, though. Like that's why I think this is a lot closer, and people are trying to make it, because if you want to talk about back catalog, that's fair. I'll concede that, because some of those joints they may not have the legs. I don't care what you say, if he play. You know, if you think about Big Bang, if he plays New York shit, that's gonna go. Touch It is gonna go. Those joints are gonna go.
Touch It, I could see. New York shit, I don't know, because once again, it's New York shit, and we're talking about the internet, which is worldwide. So there are people going to be like, whatever I would be like, oh yeah, that's my shit, but like everyone else would be like, all right, if he plays New York shit up to next to What You Know About That, or 24s, or Let's Get Away is not beaten. New York shit isn't beating any of those T.I. songs. I'm just saying.
But those are the top T.I. songs. You know, like those wouldn't go up against each other. You know what I mean?
Right. And I'm just going off the top of my head, but like, I'm like I said, when I went down my T.I. and Busta Rhymes rabbit hole, like I know there's people in the chat and people are going to hear this. I really think that T.I. did Busta a favor by not doing this, because you gotta get out of your New York mindset, underground back. Like, yes, Busta was killing it especially with those first two albums. With Hoo-Ha and Put Your Hands Where My Eyes Can See, and killing it. But we can't act like T.I. wouldn't drop 5 and 6 singles off the. I don't even count I'm Serious, like, because that was the album that technically was the flop of his career.
Busta's not backpack though. You can't put Busta.
But there are people who would be disappointed if he didn't dip into that, and like that's where he could. Once again, styles make fights. He might get caught up in the hype and play something like New York shit. That is a in this instance it would be considered backpack. That wasn't a club banger. That wasn't one of his songs that did big numbers as far as nationwide.
Think about joints like "Respect My Conglomerate" with Lil Wayne and Jadakiss. Like, you don't think that'll go? That joint was hard.
I mean, it like I said, it depends on what he put it up against, because I think there's about 15 songs T.I. could pull out to wipe the floor with that.
Man,
I don't know, man. I think your bias of the club is definitely coming out right now.
No, I think it is, but
he's in there.
It is, but also I think about that's who's going to be getting, when they put out the scorecard and it's what people start marking down, like who won which round. Now that's the thing. Like me, I just enjoy these so much. Like I forget to even start marking them down. Like I've actually enjoyed these just for the quote unquote culture, which is corny. But I really do think if you're talking about who would win, and you got all these millions of people logging on, it might be I think it'd be a lot rougher for Busta Rhymes than a lot of people want to admit.
To my homie CAD, he said, "Break Your Neck," Pass to Cavassier, Ante Up remix, Flavor in Your Ear remix. He said Clifford would get washed. Those are all jams, by the way. Those are all, especially the Ante Up remix. It's going. I don't care what T.I. play. That's gonna be hard to beat that.
I mean, yeah, those are. I'm not saying they are, but when you start like if T.I. dropped 24 on any one of those, and it might not be a good look.
It might or it might not though. That's all I'm saying. Like there's more gray area here, in my personal opinion, than I think you're giving.
I think a lot of people just feel like, oh, T.I. was scared to go up against Busta. I was like, this is a lot more evenly matched, and I think leaning towards T.I. than a lot of people want to admit to, because Busta is a legend.
If you've enjoyed this segment of the New Old Heads podcast, make sure to join our live show every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/bringingdowntheband, and join our private Discord community with talks on hip hop, music, news, and everything else.